On this week's NESN Patriots podcast, we will discuss whether playing for the Patriots is fun, and we will recap the second open session of OTAs. Hello and welcome to the NESN Patriots podcast. I am Doug Kai, joined as always by a newly coiffed Zach Cox. You can't see him, but he's got a haircut.
Yep, first haircut in 8 months.
8 months?
Yeah, it was quite the experience.
Wow, that is intense. What went into the decision to get the haircut?
The hair on the back of the neck, once it gets up to those 90 degrees in these OTA days, gets a little hot. So thought of give it a little trim. Now I got to wait 8 months until I get another one.
So that's it. You're on an 8-month program here. I like that. That's good. So as you said, we did watch OTAs on Thursday. It is Friday now, so that was yesterday. That's how the calendar works. That's how weeks work. But first of all, we will get into some comments made by former Patriots defensive end Cassius Marsh since the last time we recorded one of these podcasts. Sounds like Cassius Marsh really did not enjoy his time with the Patriots, which I guess is kind of unsurprising since he was cut after, 9 games, 10 games, something like that?
Yeah, it was after the Mexico game.
Yes.
So, yeah.
He stunk, Patriots cut him, and now he's saying that playing for the Patriots was no fun.
Yes. This is a strange, it's been a weird week. We've spent way too many hours of writing and talking and discussing about whether professional athletes are having fun at their jobs. It's a weird debate. I mean, in essence, it's kind of obvious. I mean, it's like Cassius Marsh obviously did not have a fun time here because he wasn't that good here, and the time that he was here with the Patriots was the time during the season where the Patriots were at their worst. So there was not much team success, not much personal success. Then he gets cut. I mean, that's not a great experience. Basically, Devin McCourty pretty much summed that up yesterday. It's not surprising that he had that experience. It's a little surprising that he was willing to kind of be as open as he was about it. A lot of times, I think players who just kind of don't want to ruffle feathers, don't want to burn bridges, that kind of thing, they'll kind of leave and be like, yeah, it didn't work out, but it was a good experience. It's okay. I'm sure there are plenty of players who feel exactly the way that Cassius Marsh does right now. Yeah. It was noteworthy that he was willing to just kind of reveal all of this, but I don't think this is some sort of big news-breaking story.
No, I think I'm going to play this down the middle a little bit, where I appreciate Cassius Marsh's honesty, but at the same time, he does kind of come across as a baby. Yes. It's like, okay, he got cut, it didn't work out, and now he's saying that, oh, they don't have fun there anyway. I mean, that's pretty easy to say when you get cut. At the same time, we want athletes to be honest. We wish that Patriots players would be a lot more honest with us. And then when a guy finally is honest, we all kind of blast him. And I think that Cassius Marsh, no one's going to feel that bad for this guy. He's a professional athlete. He apparently didn't have any fun on the Patriots, but it was kind of a tough situation for him. And it was a situation that a lot of Patriots in the 90s and early 2000s also faced, where he went from playing with Pete Carroll to playing with Bill Belichick. And those guys, as much as they respect each other, are polar opposites as far as coaching goes. Pete Carroll is the ultimate player's coach, and Bill Belichick is not a player's coach whatsoever. He will light into anyone in a meeting, in a practice. I mean, we've been watching these OTAs. It's not only Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick actually isn't being that harsh to players. You've got Joe Judge screaming at rookies and veterans. You've got, all these Patriots assistant coaches treating the 5th day of OTAs like it's the practice before the Super Bowl.
Intense.
It's intense, and it's an intense environment to be in. And I'm sure that when you're getting screamed at in a meeting or in a practice, it's probably not a whole lot of fun. But like Devin McCourty said, winning is fun, and being with your teammates before and after practice, that's fun too. And I'm sure that there's guys who, we watch players in practice, they're smiling, they're having fun. It's not all fun and games because this is a billion-dollar franchise and the idea is to win. But they do have some fun. It's not like they're, I don't know.
Yeah, to me it seems, I read Marsh's the San Francisco Chronicle, who conducted this interview with Marsh, where these quotes came from. They posted the full transcript of this half-hour interview. So I read through it earlier today. And the biggest gripe that Marsh seemed to have was that the Patriots wanted him to play a position that he hadn't really played before or wasn't really comfortable playing. It's basically the same situation that Chris Long was in last season when he came over from St. Louis, where he was just basically like a pure edge rusher. They asked him to play a lot more inside, a lot more three technique type stuff, and he didn't really like it. But Chris Long said, okay, I mean, I'm here because I want to win a Super Bowl. I'm just going to deal with it. I'll do it for a year, and then I'm gone. Obviously, Chris Long chose to come here, and Cassius Marsh was traded here, so it's a little bit of a different situation. But it seems like that's where the kind of the crux of his discontent kind of I don't know, comes from. So there's kind of a reason for all of this kind of ill will toward him. Some players are going. It's basically just all how a player kind of reacts to this, because you've always heard how the Patriots ask their players to do more things or different things than they'd be asked to do on other teams. Some of them come in, they embrace it, or they at least accept it, and they say, okay, this is what I have to do to help the team win. Some players, they just don't have that same mindset. And Cassius Marsh seems to be in the second camp, which isn't necessarily wrong. I mean, the Patriots system is not the only system that has produced a championship-winning team. Obviously, Pete Carroll has won a Super Bowl. He almost won another one. There are other teams that are much more, and the Eagles this past year have much more kind of player-friendly system and coaching and all that. So obviously, it's not the Patriot way is not the only way, but it does have a proven track record of success, because I think the players there do buy into it. If the players don't buy into it, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and I think that Cassius Marsh was being maybe a little bit over dramatic about his role too, because the majority of the time he was still rushing the passer. It's not like they were asking him to play slot cornerback or something. I mean, like, they asked him to do more than he had done with the Seahawks and dropping back into coverage. But I mean, when Cassius Marsh was rushing the passer with the Patriots, he was running 10 yards behind the quarterback. It's not like he was lighting it up as getting sacks or as a pass rusher. He just had an overall disappointing tenure with the Patriots. It ended. He's happy now with the 49ers. He signed a contract extension there, so he's in a better place now. The Patriots are better off without him. And
one thing I would say is there seem to be a lot of, obviously Patriots fans aren't happy with Cassius Marsh right now. He's getting a lot of hate on social media and whatnot. And that's justified, I think. I mean, I think you can bash this guy saying, like, come on, like, you couldn't handle this. But the people who are saying, no, you're wrong, playing for the Patriots is really fun. One, you don't play for the Patriots. Right. You don't know if it's really fun. And two, basically what we've heard throughout Bill Belichick's entire career as a coach, dating back to Bill Parcells, is that he's not a particularly fun guy to play with. Yeah. Playing for the Patriots probably is not all that fun. Winning Super Bowls and winning a lot of games is very fun. So it's just how you kind of balance.
Too,
It's more rewarding than fun. I think Martellus Bennett, who obviously played for the Patriots in parts of the last two seasons, he went on a long kind of Twitter multi-tweet. I don't want to call it a rant, but it was sent out a bunch of tweets about this yesterday, and I think he made a really good point. I mean, his one line was, what it took to become a winner in New England wasn't fun, but the results were. Yeah. Basically, if you work as hard as the Patriots work, and then you don't end up kind of reaping the benefits from it, like Cassius Marsh wasn't able to do, you kind of look back on it and be like, that kind of sucked. I mean, I just got driven into the ground, I got yelled at all the time, and I didn't even get anything about it. Yeah, that sucks. But if you go through all that, and then at the end of the season, like, say Cassius Marsh did stick with the Patriots through the end of the season, even if you make it to a Super Bowl and you lose, I'm sure he would have a significantly different opinion about his time in New England.
Definitely, and there's been a lot more people coming out and defending the Patriots and saying that it is fun than not. I mean, obviously you've got guys like Teddy Bruschi and Matt Chatham who are saying it, but I mean, even Shane McClellan, who isn't officially retired yet, but got cut this offseason. He only played, 17 total games with the Patriots, something like that. He said that he had fun. Stephon Gilmore, Devin McCourty, all the players yesterday were saying that it was it's a fun experience. So I don't know. It's kind of a whole lot of nothing, and you pile on Lane Johnson and Brandon Brooks, the Eagles players, who say that Patriots players don't have fun into this, when it's like, well, they never played for the Patriots. So I mean, their comments almost don't even matter to me. Yeah. They're so uninteresting to me, because it's like, you beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Why are you still talking about that?
Yeah, that's always been a weird situation ever since Lane Johnson first made these comments, kind of in the immediate aftermath of the Super Bowl. Because like you said, he never played for New England. Brandon Brooks never played for New England. You have to assume that somebody who did play for New England was telling him these things, that he didn't just kind of invent this off the top of his head. So whether that was, I mean, Chris Long and LeGarrette Blount were both former Patriots. I'm not saying that either of them said this, but you got to assume that he kind of got this from somewhere. But as an outsider's perspective, you can just kind of dismiss those. With Cassius Marsh, it's the guy's opinion. I mean, you can't say, like, no, you're wrong, you did have fun here. If he didn't have fun, he didn't have fun. But, I mean, you can kind of disagree with I don't know, you could say that he should have felt differently, but in the end, it's his own his own opinion.
And even if Chris Long and LeGarrette Blount are kind of the stem of those comments, or the I can imagine them saying, like, oh, wow, you guys have a lot more fun here. Or like, oh, wow, like, this is a lot less high pressure. Or like, oh, man, I was in this one meeting. I did, like, this one play kind of wrong, and Bill Belichick just lit into me. It was crazy. Like, you can complain while also having a good time. I mean, not everything is always perfect, and you can comment about how a situation is different while still enjoying your experience somewhere else. So LeGarrette Blount and Chris Long have never had, negative things to say about the Patriots in public, so I can't imagine they despise their time in New England. I mean, they both won Super Bowl, so it couldn't have been that bad.
No, definitely. And I was just reading, I went back and read Chris Long's comments from after he left the Patriots, when he decided not to even kind of pursue being re-signed. He had a long interview with Albert Breer over at the MMQB, and he said a lot of the same things that Cassius Marsh said, just being like, I was in a different, like, the way they used me, like, really wasn't like how I was used to, all this kind of stuff. My next stop, I want to be somewhere it's more in line with my skill set. But then he said, I have tremendous respect for the Patriots organization. Exactly, Obviously, I love my time there. I loved all the guys there. So it was just kind of a different presentation. And you have to wonder whether Cassius Marsh, if he's on a Patriots team that wins a Super Bowl, whether he ends up saying those same kind of things.
No, absolutely. And he might have in that case. All right, let's get into OTAs. As we said, it was the second open session in OTA so far. The first one was last Tuesday. The second one was yesterday on Thursday. And Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski still are not around, but there were some players who did return to practice. Jonathan Jones, Trey Flowers, Dante Hightower, all three of those guys. It was good to see them back out on the field, but it was still a lot more of Danny Etling and Brian Hoyer at quarterback. I thought that both of those guys were better than they were in the first open session, which is to be expected. The first open session was the Patriots' second overall OTA session. The one that we watched yesterday was their fifth open OTA session. So, they're kind of knocking the rust off a little bit. And I don't know, I'll wait to have a full opinion on Danny Etling once he's got pressure in his face and in the preseason and everything. But so far, I've seen worse quarterbacks in a Patriots training camp, and that's kind of a positive thing to say about Danny Etling, who's a seventh-round rookie.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can't watch Danny Etling so far and be like, this guy stinks. Like, there's no reason this guy has no chance of making this team, anything like that. I still think he obviously has an uphill climb to make this roster, because he basically probably has to beat out Brian Hoyer or at least convince the team to hold on to three quarterbacks. But so far, so it's a favorable situation for quarterbacks with no pass rush, no contact, anything like that. But so far he's looked solid.
Yeah, they completed over 75% of their passes in Thursday's practice. Not that that totally matters, but last Tuesday it was at under 50%. So a dramatic improvement there for the Patriots quarterbacks. Let's just throw out some guys who kind of impressed maybe. Cornerback J.C. Jackson is an undrafted free agent who was running with the first team. He was lined up across from Stephon Gilmore a lot of the time. Kind of seems like that number 2 cornerback position is up in the air right now, especially with Jason McCourty staying on the sideline for drills.
That's been an interesting situation. We're not exactly sure what the deal is with him, whether he's dealing with an injury or whether it's I'm not sure what it is, because he hasn't been practicing with the. Normally, the injured players will kind of split off early in practice and go down to a lower field and do some separate drills. Jason McCourty has been with the team the whole time, but he's just not participating in these team drills for whatever reason.
So that's definitely a little bit odd, but we'll kind of keep our eye on that throughout minicamp, which is next week. We'll get into that later. Another guy, or two guys actually, who stood out to me yesterday, and there weren't a ton of standouts, but I thought that Will Tye and Jacob Hollister, the two tight ends, made enough plays that kind of made you open your eyes a little bit about these guys, where that number 2 and 3 tight end position on the Patriots behind Rob Gronkowski is kind of wide open. And Will Tye is a guy who has starting experience. He has almost 1,000 career receiving yards, spent almost all of last season on the Patriots practice squad. So now the full year under his belt in the system, he's a guy who could potentially steal that number 2 or 3 tight end role and maybe thrive if he gets some playing time. For now, him and Hollister are really looking pretty good as far as passing camp goes.
Yeah, I agree with that. And both of them have been able to get plenty of reps and targets and touches because since both of these quarterbacks aren't, one of them is very inexperienced, one of them is a backup, and that's what he is. He's not as talented as Tom Brady or some other starting quarterbacks. You see him throwing a lot of dump offs to running backs, a lot of passes to tight ends in the flats, stuff like that. So we haven't actually really even seen a ton of what these Patriots receivers can provide so far in this camp because so many of these targets are going to tight ends, so many of them are going to running backs. But I would agree with that. Both of those players have definitely stood out so far.
Yeah, like you said, wide receivers not getting a ton of work so far. I think that, if you had to look at one receiver who's maybe standing out a little bit more, it might be Kenny Britt, but even he's not catching that many passes. I think that Philip Dorsett has probably been the most heavily targeted receiver, but he's not catching a lot of passes. He's probably only catching about half the passes that are thrown his way. He had a drop yesterday, and he had a pass broken up over him. So, mixed results for Philip Dorsett through 2 weeks, and mixed results, I guess, for Jordan Matthews as well. He had a nice touchdown catch. I think Philip Dorsett did as well, but there's also times it seemed like where Jordan Matthews was kind of getting lit into by assistant coaches out there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Cordell Patterson has been a little, I don't want to say disappointing, but he's been a little quiet, and he looks a bit like he doesn't completely have the system down yet. It looks like he maybe ran the wrong route on a couple of plays and just kind of didn't fight for some balls. It's obviously it's hard to make any conclusions in this kind of setting, but yeah, we haven't seen a whole lot from him yet.
Julian Edelman has been limited in full team drills. He's been participating in punt returns and doing some other drills, but when the Patriots are going full speed in team drills, he has been sitting out of those. And there's a lot of guys who are limited in this period of the Patriots offseason workout program. So we can't get a great sense of really what the Patriots starting offense or defense looks like because there are guys like Marcus Cannon, Trent Brown, Isaiah Wynn, who are all limited. On the defensive side, Malcolm Brown is limited. And like we said, Jason McCourty. So we kind of still have to guess what the full starting offense and defense looks like. But here's a question for you, and it's not something that we can really gain off of OTAs, but I think that we can kind of fill in 5 of the 6 Patriots defenders in their front 6, where you'd have probably Danny Shelton and Malcolm Brown as the starting defensive tackles. If it's not Shelton, that's Lawrence Guy. You've got Trey Flowers as one starting defensive end. You've got Dante Hightower and Kyle Van Noy as 2 of the starting linebackers. Who's that 6th guy? Is it Derek Rivers? Is it Landon Roberts? Is it Harvey Longy? Is it Dietrich Wise? Is it that 3rd defensive tackle? Who do you think would be that 6th guy right now?
I mean, I read this in your mailbag this morning, and I agree with you that right now I would have Derek Rivers in there. Really have no idea whether he will actually be able to lock down that spot because with front 7 players, it's hard to judge anything from these non-contact practices. But he was the Patriots' top draft pick last year, and he says he's completely fully healthy now. He had a year, basically a redshirt year, to kind of learn the system, to kind of get to adjust to the NFL lifestyle without actually having to be on the field in practices and all that stuff. So I think that he's probably the best bet to be there right now.
Adrian Claiborne's another one too.
Yes, Adrian Claiborne. Yeah. I agree with you that I like Adrian Claiborne as more of a rotational guy. I like Dietrich Wise as more of a rotational guy there too. They do seem to suddenly have some depth at pass rusher, which they haven't really had in a couple of years. They definitely didn't have last year. But I think the Patriots are hoping that Derek Rivers can take that spot. What would you say?
Yeah, I think that in an ideal situation, it's Derek Rivers. He was a 3rd-round pick last year. I thought they looked pretty good in training camp last year until he got hurt. I don't think that you want a guy like Lawrence Guy. I don't think you want 3 300-pounders there in your starting defense because that really limits your pass rush potential. I don't think you want one of the linebackers starting, whether that's Juwan Bentley, Landon Roberts, or Christian Sam, just because I think that kind of limits your overall upside there. So, yeah, I mean, maybe if Dietrich Wise takes another step forward, then they go in a little bit more traditional 4-man front there with Dietrich Wise and Trey Flowers standing up on the edge. And Dietrich Wise certainly has the length and size to be a productive run defender, but he didn't get a ton of opportunities in that role last year, so it kind of depends on what strides he takes this offseason in that potential role.
I'm interested to see what we see from Harvey Longy as well, because he's a guy that both of us really liked last summer. He's a versatile player, has a ability to play as on the edge and off the line at linebacker. So I think as long as he stays healthy, and obviously his injury was a non-football injury from that serious car accident. He's also back to full health now. So I think as long as he can stay on the field and stay productive, I think he'll definitely have a role this season.
If Derek Rivers has like 12 sacks this season, would you name him Rookie of the Year since he was drafted last year? This is the Ben Simmons argument, kind of.
Yes, I mean as long as that's within NFL rules. I don't
Which
know.
I'm not sure if it
I don't know
is.
what the exact rule, whether you have to be a real rookie or if you can be a first-year player.
Right.
But yeah, I mean he's a pass rusher, and if you have a productive pass rush season like that, I can definitely see it happening.
I think that would certainly be interesting.
He did have a ton of sacks in college, obviously playing at the lower level in the FCS, but he was tremendously productive, and I'm sure the Patriots are hoping he can replicate some of that this season.
Yeah, and he's got athleticism, so I think they'll like to see what he can do dropping back into coverage. We'll see how his knee responds to obviously the ACL surgery they had last year. But let's get into the cornerbacks a little bit before we move on. There are some interesting names there. Keon Crossan was really the standout of the first open OTA session, but he was limited in this practice, working down on the lower practice field. So that gave J.C. Jackson a lot more opportunities. And Jackson's really got a pretty interesting story. He was regarded talent-wise as being like a early day 3 pick, maybe a late day 2 pick. But he did have some legal issues in college. He was dismissed from the University of Florida after being charged with armed robbery. He was found not guilty in that case. I think the story went that he arrived at a friend's house, he left to take a phone call, and the friends that he was there with held up the house for an Xbox or something.
An Xbox and some cash.
Cash. So he was there, but he wasn't present because he was outside taking a phone call. And then he went to the University of Maryland after taking 1 year at Riverside Community College, I believe it was, in California. And there were no other incidents at Maryland. He definitely had kind of a tough upbringing in South Florida. So he's definitely got an interesting story. He's also obviously got a lot of talent. Stephon Gilmore said that he's been impressed with him so far. So this could be that diamond in the rough, undrafted free agent cornerback that the Patriots have had in the past, like Jonathan Jones, Malcolm Butler, Kyle Arrington, Randall Gay. But it's also still really early, and the Patriots have been giving opportunities to other guys in that position. Ryan Lewis, who was an undrafted free agent last year, played that kind of number 2 starting role last week. Keon Crossan, like we said before, 7th-round pick this year, was receiving a lot of our opportunities last week. So that role is still kind of really up in the air, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, these young cornerbacks are really getting a great opportunity during OTAs because so many of the people that are vying for that number 2 spot aren't on the field. I mean, Jonathan Jones is still recovering from his injury. He's been either absent or limited. Same thing with Cyrus Jones, who's recovering from a torn ACL. Jason McCourty, like we talked about earlier, has been present but not participating in these team drills. So that spot opposite Stephon Gilmore has really just been kind of rotating through between guys, someone like Eric Rowe, who was here last year. But other than that, it's basically been those rookies that you talked about. Jamal Wiltz is in there a little bit. Ryan Lewis, who was obviously on the practice squad last year with Wiltz. Duke Dawson seeing some time in the slot and outside. So the Patriots are really just giving all of these players kind of the opportunities. A.J. Moore, who's another undrafted free agent, he seems like more of a special teams guy at the moment, but that's how Jonathan Jones made the team in his first year a couple years back. So yeah, there's a lot of talent in this group. They're getting a lot of opportunities right now. No roster spots are won and lost in OTAs, but if you can make a good first impression in some of these practices, I think it definitely gives you a little bit of a leg up going into training camp.
And I think that we all probably would have expected to see Eric Rowe in that definitive number 2 cornerback spot if Jason McCourty's not going to be on the field. But I don't really blame the Patriots for seeing what they have in these other guys because
might as well.
At this point, 2 years into Eric Rowe's Patriots career, you kind of know what you have in Eric Rowe, and if you can improve upon that spot, then I say you do it, just because Eric Rowe is pretty inconsistent. He was beat, obviously, a couple times in the Super Bowl against the Eagles. He rebounded well, but he's kind of a boomer-bust type of player there at cornerback, where it seems like he gets lucky a decent amount of times, he makes some big plays, but then he can also get beat deep. So, like I said, you know what you have there. I don't mind the idea of being like, oh, let's see what J.C. Jackson can do back there. Let's see what Ryan Lewis can do back there, just to see if you can improve upon that spot. And I think that it's possible that Jason McCourty could do that as well. But I'm not ready to put Eric Rowe's name in the starting defense in marker. And I mean, this might be getting too far ahead of myself, but I kind of considered Eric Rowe a lock since he's not that automatic number 2 with Jason McCourty not on the field. I might not consider Eric Rowe a lock at this point, just because, I mean, if he's not going to be the starter, if you're giving J.C. Jackson and Ryan Lewis starting reps over Eric Rowe to see what they can do, then I'm not sure if Eric Rowe is a definitive lock to make this team.
Yeah, you could make the case that Stephon Gilmore is the only lock at cornerback right now.
Right.
I mean,
Duke Dawson probably too.
Oh, Duke Dawson as well. All right, because he was the second-round pick this year. So Stephon Gilmore, Duke Dawson. But yeah, like you said, I mean, Eric Rowe could end up being a casualty here. Jason McCourty, even before he had these injuries, we were talking about whether there was a chance that he could kind of just underperform in camp and one of these young guys could come take his spot. So yeah, like I said, a lot of talent in here, and with Eric Rowe, he's solid. He's good. Yeah, I mean, I don't think any team's going to complain about having Eric Rowe as your third or fourth cornerback. Right. He could probably even be fine as a starting cornerback, but he's not a guy that I would see coming into this season that could take a next step up and become Malcolm Butler 2.0 or something like that, or kind of a legitimate lockdown guy. Yeah. Like you said, he makes some plays. He's really he has a nose for the ball. He has a tendency of being in the right place at the right time, but then he also has those miscues. He has some injury history. So yeah, if they can improve on that position with one of these young guys that they already have under contract here, they might as well. It's in their best interest to try all options right now.
Dante Hightower, like we said earlier, return to practice. That's obviously a very good sign, but he wouldn't commit to playing in week 1 during his media availability, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was in this media availability. I think some people are not taking it out of context, but kind of twisting his words a little bit, because he said, they're like, how are you feeling? He's like, I'm 100% in practice, or he doesn't say I'm 100%. He's like, I'm feeling great. I'm practicing, no limitations, anything like that. And then someone's like, so you would say you're 100%. And he's like, I don't know. I don't want to get into like percentages and all that. Like, I know I'm here. I'm still working. I'm still improving. Like, I think he's going to be fine. I don't think that statement was like, yeah, well, I'm still. I don't know. It seemed like the kind of thing where he didn't just want to say that he's completely back because he's still kind of working.
And I mean, if he's practicing in May, then it would be pretty crazy.
Unless he has a setback, I don't think there'll be anything to worry about with him.
Yeah, it seems like he probably just didn't want to get too far out ahead of himself on that one. Now on the docket, looking forward, we've got minicamp on the horizon. That's next week, June 5th through the 7th. That is Tuesday through Thursday, I believe. And that's when we will see, we think, Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski back on the field. So how do you think that really changes things in minicamp for the Patriots?
I think it changes things a ton.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's probably the 2 best players on this entire team. Rob Gronkowski coming back is not a huge deal from a practice structure standpoint. Yeah. Obviously, the Patriots want Rob Gronkowski on the field as much as they can, but if he was the only person skipping these, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, because obviously you need these other tight ends to get reps anyway, and you don't want Rob Gronkowski to get hurt. Having him back, it'll be cool. Having Tom Brady back changes everything, really, because all we've gotten to watch so far is Brian Hoyer and Danny Etling. And not that Tom Brady has anything to prove at all to us or to anybody, but like we said last week, there's a chance that he probably hasn't even met some of his new offensive targets, some of his new wide receivers, new running backs, new tight ends. And to have him, even just for 3 days, working with them on the field, kind of gaining that chemistry and that relationship with Brady that so many receivers in the past just haven't been able to kind of solidify, it's going to be huge. It's going to be strange if he comes to these 3 days and then just decides to bail on the rest of OTAs and go back to Morocco or wherever he was.
He is,
But yeah, I mean, having Brady on the field is going to be a big deal, and it's going to be a freaking zoo down there, everybody trying to talk to Brady and see exactly what the hell he's been up to these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he talks to the media.
I would doubt it.
I highly doubt that as well, since he didn't talk to us until training camp last year.
Yeah, I think so.
And there was really nothing going on last year with him. It was a year after all the drama of Deflategate and everything. So yeah, he just tries to address the media as infrequently as possible at this point. But yeah, I mean, you've got mandatory minicamp June 5th through the 7th. Then, as you alluded to, they've got more OTAs the next week. That's June 11th, 12th, 14th, and 15th. And usually that final day of OTAs or minicamp or whatever it is, if everything else has gone as planned, Bill Belichick usually cancels that or
go to the
just has
movies
like
or
a fun
something,
session or something. But I don't know. I mean, there's 4 practices after minicamp, so that's a decent chunk of OTAs. I think there's only 10 total OTAs, so that's almost half of the total OTAs come after this 3-day minicamp, and I think it would really behoove Tom Brady to stick around, to go to those 4 voluntary sessions. But if he's going to go to any voluntary sessions, then why hasn't he been at the ones before minicamp? So I would still probably predict that he won't go, but I don't know. I mean, I still just think he should show up.
I agree. What do you make about this report today from our buddy Mike Giardi that Tom Brady has been at Gillette Stadium in the bubble throwing with Julian Edelman? We don't know exactly when or exactly how often he's been in there because Julian Edelman obviously has been at practice with the rest of his teammates, so it must be at a different time.
Right.
It's just a weird situation.
It's a really weird situation. It's I would kind of compare it to like when a couple breaks up, usually like the friends of the couple have to pick like one side or the other. And Julian Edelman's like, he's picked Bill Belichick, but he's still seeing Tom Brady on the side. He's like doing it undercover, like under the practice bubble. It's just a weird situation. I mean, if he can stand in the bubble and throw to Julian Edelman for, I don't know how long these sessions are, but I'm guessing they're not 5 minutes long because that would be kind of a waste of everyone's time. I don't know. I don't know why he can't be out there for OTAs. And as we've said a million times, ultimately, this probably won't matter. At the same time, this is the first time that he would really get to throw to, guys like Braxton Berrios and Jordan Matthews and even guys like, Ryan Izzo, Troy Nicholas, guys who were on the practice squad last year like Riley McCarron and Will Tye. I'm sure that he wasn't spending a lot of time in practice last year throwing to those guys. Kenny Britt was only around for a few weeks last year, so I think that this would be a good time to build up his chemistry with him too. And he's working with his old pal Julian Edelman, and it's like that's probably the one guy that doesn't need the reps with Tom Brady.
Exactly.
And they're getting them in the practice bubble by themselves. So I don't know. I mean, I can't wait for all of this to be over. I kind of wish that they would just show up for voluntary OTAs just so that we didn't have to keep pondering over this because there's really nothing left to ponder. But I don't know. It's all weird. That's really all I'd say is that it's all very strange.
Yeah, there's, like you just said, there's not much more to kind of analyze from this situation, considering it's been going on for weeks now, and who knows when it's going to end. We're assuming that it'll end next week when mandatory minicamp starts, but then minicamp ends, and then we've got this whole debate going back up again. So, yeah, very strange situation, very un-Patriot-like offseason.
It definitely is. And one more thing before we go, or just some loose ends that we can pick up. Malcolm Mitchell still not back out of practice. He was photographed practicing during the very first OTA of the spring.
Yep, close to the media, that one.
That one was close to the media. Then he wasn't out there on Tuesday last week when we were out there, and Thursday this week. I don't know. I mean, if he hasn't been, we just don't know if he's practicing or not. From our perspective, Patriots players don't talk about injuries. Patriots coaches don't talk about injuries. And it's very difficult to get anyone close to the Patriots to talk about injuries. That's why there's no information out there about Jason McCourty. That's why there's no information out there about Malcolm Mitchell. It's not for a lack of trying. There's just no one talking about it. So if no one talks, then we don't know what's going on. I would say that if it was a situation where the Patriots thought that Malcolm Mitchell wouldn't be able to play this season or something, he probably would have been cut. He probably would have been waived. So the fact that he's still on the team is notable in itself. But I don't know. I mean, I gave up on Malcolm Mitchell over the offseason, basically. And this is just me doubling down on that. Until I see him lining up at wide receiver in a regular season game, I'm not counting on Malcolm Mitchell to do anything this season for the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, right now you have to consider him on the outside looking in terms of a roster spot right now, just until we even see him in one of these practices and see what he can do. It didn't look like he was wearing any sort of brace on his knee in that one.
It was taped up though, right?
It was heavily taped up. But again, who knows if they could have, in that picture, he was jumping in the air. They could have taken that picture, he could have come down, hurt his knee again, and he's out for the season. Who knows? And yeah, we haven't seen him on any sort of football field since last August, since he got hurt. So actually, no. I guess
Well,
he
no,
did come.
he
He
came
did come.
back
He
last
did
year,
come.
yeah.
But that's even an even bigger problem now. The
Yeah.
fact that he was able to come back. He was close enough that he could come back to practice for a couple of weeks last year. Never ended up getting back on the active roster, and now we still don't see him. I don't know. He's got an uphill climb. I think if he comes back and he's solid, or if he comes back and he's healthy, you can pretty confidently put him back on the roster because of what he did in 2016 and because the Patriots do seem to like him. But he's got to prove he's healthy first.
Does KT tape do anything?
I have no idea. I don't know.
I have no idea
I feel like
either.
it's kind of a scam, but
I feel like it's like those like fighting necklaces and stuff. Like
yeah, we're gonna catch heat from like the fitness hardos about this, but
we are.
I don't understand it.
I can't. I don't understand how like putting like 3 strands of tape on your knee would fix anything, unless it's like a brace. I don't really know what it does or why people use it.
I could not tell you.
Didn't seem to help Malcolm Mitchell in that first practice since he hasn't been back on the field since then. Any other loose ends you want to pick up before we end this here podcast? Are you going to the Tom Brady Best Buddies event?
I am. Yes, I will be at Harvard Stadium tonight for
Breaking news.
Tom Brady Best Buddies annual flag football game that he holds every year. Been going on for a long time now.
It has been going on for a long time.
Typically, this was a time when reporters would be able to talk to Tom Brady in kind of a more relaxed atmosphere, when there's not kind of Patriots media personnel and the whole team kind of milling around there. But ever since Deflategate, really, he hasn't talked, right?
No, yeah, I believe he talked in 2013 and in 2014. I believe I was at both of those. Did not speak in 2015, 2016, or 2017.
Yeah, I was there last year, and no reporter could get within about 100 yards of him.
No, this is sometimes an opportunity to see other players. I think Danny Amendola was coming off an injury a few years ago when he was participating in the flag football game. I think Dion Lewis was the same way, but then Dion Lewis participated in the game and then missed like half the season. So I don't know. Maybe it doesn't help guys who are injured.
It'll be worth.
I
mean, we basically go on the off chance that Tom Brady decides to talk to us. But even if he doesn't talk, it's at least a cool opportunity to see which of his teammates show up for this game, because there's usually a handful of Patriots players that either play in the game or are there to watch, and maybe we'll be able to snag one of them and see what their thoughts on the whole situation are.
Definitely. We will be back here late next week after minicamp. We'll recap everything that we saw during those 3 practices. And then after that, we've only got one more open OTA on June 12th, and then we're pretty much off for the summer. So
vacation time.
Probably 2 more podcasts after this one before the long NFL break for the summer. But keep it on NESN.com for all of your Patriots coverage. Follow me on Twitter at Doug Kide. Follow Zach on Twitter at ZachCoxNESN. That's ZACK. And yeah, that's it for the NESN Patriots podcast this week.